Hey everybody, how's it going? And welcome back to another video. Now, before we start, I'm going to address two things. So, one, the camera may shake. It's because my feet are on the bed with the camera, but the camera's on a flat surface. But because of the springs and all that, if I move my legs, I know you guys just saw a difference. So, I'm just addressing that right now, as well as with the matters talked about in this video. Most of them will be talked about in scientific averages. However, on my experience, that again will be my experience. You guys may have different experiences with this, as well as different treatments and severities of it. If I'm looking at my computer, which is here, so I will be looking here to address the facts as well as scientific averages. However, I will directly look at you guys when talking about my own experiences and differences from what I know and have experienced compared to the facts. I just wish to get that out of the way to avoid confusion and avoid people thinking that this is all what I'm saying, or what I'm saying can't relate, or just anything that could be an issue. But with that all being said, today we are talking about D.O.M.S, which stands for Delayed Onset Muscle Soreness. And so D.O.M.S occurs in a variety of workouts. Now, these workouts will kind of vary from person to person, because with endurance and with repetition, these workouts will become less substantial. And, D.O.M.S isn't always going to occur. You can do the same workout as somebody else, even with less training, but due to the way that your body is configured is the way that you will show symptoms of D.O.M.S. As, what's an easy example? If you were to go up against a world-class sprinter and do a simple sprint for them, it would hurt you a lot more. Now, that is because of the lactic acid buildup. Because, a lot of pro athletes are trained to do this thing, they've been doing it for so long, their body has began to kind of adapt and become used to the repetition of the lactic acid. Now, that is not to say that they don't experience it, it's just that their body has become more used to it. Whereas if we were to try the same things as a normal person, it would affect us a lot differently, as our bodies are not yet used to it. It's kind of the same as running, as a professional sprinter can run so fast compared to us, where we can run a 15-second, and that is our legs are burning, our heart is beating out of our chest, and our lungs feel like we aren't getting any air. But for them, they do it, and then they're just alright, see you guys tomorrow. Now, a lot of the symptoms of D.O.M.S are they basically all fall into muscle soreness. And so this goes into the touch, motion, swelling, and fatigue. Now, with touch, it basically means that it hurts to touch the muscle. And then reduced motion is it hurts to move. Swelling is it's a fuller area. And fatigue just means you can't do as much with it. Now, this all falls into kind of a relationship to the lactic acid. Due to the increased amount of lactic acid that is within your muscles, that's why it does hurt to touch. Because, right now, my legs are suffering from D.O.M.S, not from the run, but from a workout I did. And so, for me to touch, it touches all those muscle fibers that are kind of torn from the workout itself, as well as all the lactic acid that has been moved through the bloodstream. Sorry, I got a mustache hair in my mouth. But, that is what creates one of the soreness things, is just the amount of lactic acid in your muscles, as well as the muscle tears. Now, with muscle tears, it's not a big thing. It's not where, it's not an accidental tear where your whole chest will be blue from tearing it, or you'll see, the muscle snap. It's not that. That's the way that your body develops muscle hypertrophy, is that every time you work out, there'll become a small stray between muscle fibers. And within that gap is where the muscle grows. And so that is how hypertrophy builds, is every time that you work out, it'll create a tear, and then it'll build up. And so every time you create a tear, it develops a bigger and bigger thing, substantially leading to a larger hypertrophy of the muscle. Now, with the reduced motion, that is based on the contraction of the muscle. Now, this comes as different muscles have different ranges that they allow you to move in. So if I have a tight hamstring, I can extend my leg perfectly fine. That is because, hamstrings, they adduct the muscle compared to abduction. So adduct is when, like with my elbow, for me to add adduction. So that affects my bicep, whereas my tricep does abduction, where it takes it away from the body. And so that kind of is what creates the muscle soreness, is the tension being put on that muscle as it still has lactic acid sitting within it, making it so that way you have, all of these blood vessels as well as all of the acid sitting in your legs, and then as you tense it, it just kind of make it hard for it to move around, and so it kind of just expands the muscle or the area of which the muscle contains, making it so that it hurts more as well as increases the fatigue as well as creates swelling due to the lactic acid as well as the amount of water and blood being pushed there trying to move nutrients in order to help the muscle regrow and help be able to perform again. And now muscle fatigue, that just falls into the lactic acid part of things due to the already lactic acid sitting in that muscle. It makes it so that way your body will have a lower tolerance to create more lactic acid in order to put in that muscle again. Now, another detail, like with bodybuilding, a lot of times they say, oh yeah, go till you can't go anymore. And so that is not always the case for every workout, to go till failure, or to go till it feels like your muscle is going to come off. Or as Zach Perna would say, meat off the... all I can think of is meat off the bone, but I know that's not the right phrase. The muscle, or it's falling off the bone or something like that. That's not necessary, because even doing a quick workout will affect the muscle. It's just a different kind of strain that it puts onto the muscle. As when D.O.M.S is being affected, or when D.O.M.S is being put in, that is one kind of training that is mostly, what's the word I'm looking for? Anaerobic training, that is it. That is mostly anaerobic training. Whereas in most cases where D.O.M.S is less significant or does not occur is in aerobic training. Now that is because of the way that the body burns lactic acid. Because with some of the treatment things for D.O.M.S, there's, I'm reading the wrong thing, massages in order to move the lactic acid out and create more fresh blood going into the muscles. There is muscle relaxant creams in order to they're basically anti-inflammatory, so that way it reduces the amount of swelling in the muscle and makes it so that way it hurts less. There are hot tubs and ice baths that help to treat it, because the ice baths make it so that all of the blood flows into your core, and then as you get out of the ice bath, your legs, or whatever muscle, I just keep saying legs because that's what I'm thinking right now, but the muscle belly will have new blood flushed into there, and then hot tub in order to, again, relax the muscle. Now, in order to reduce the amount of D.O.M.S one of the big things is hydration in order to have a better flowing circuit, in order to have it so that blood is able to carry more nutrients and help repair the muscle as it tears instead of later. Another thing is to warm up properly, making sure that you stretch in order to kind of create a relaxant and stretch the muscle, so that way during your exercise you're able to get the most out of it essentially, and have it so that way as you work out and blood begins to flow there, it doesn't begin to expand the limit set forth early, and that way that you've pre-stretched, it kind of allows for a greater area, as well as it already creates a sense of tension, so that way you don't really have to deal with all of the contraction that the DOMS may include. Another thing is a cool down. Now this falls into the anaerobic and aerobic ways that your body has lactic acid. As with anaerobic training like sprints and jumps and all that, your body, that's where your body produces the lactic acid, because it goes into the state of having those moments of fast explosive speed, and that is what in turns produces lactic acid more frequently. As with these faster speeds, your body can't really keep up, and so it sends out that lactic acid as a message in order to slow down. That's what that is. It's basically your brain going, I can't do this anymore, please slow down, and it sends that out in order to kind of force you to slow down. However, with the aerobic training aerobically actually uses the lactic acid and gets rid of it. That's why in a lot of training cycles for sprinters and like running athletes and endurance athletes, they'll have it where they'll run and then they'll jog afterwards in order to perform that aerobic activity after the anaerobic. So that way they produce the lactic acid, and then just as quickly as they made it, they begin to burn it off again, so that way they can not be as affected going into the next rep, in order so that way they can perform better later on. Now, in some cases, in certain activities, they will have it where they'll perform their anaerobic activity and then they'll move into just like sitting around and taking a break for the amount of time. Now, that is good depending on the activity, as jumps do not have the same severity as sprints do, based on the duration as well as kind of the technique and distance, because with jumps you still create anaerobic, like you're still performing an anaerobic activity, however it's not always long enough for your body to create that mental note of, oh, please stop, and create the lactic acid. It does create some, however not enough in order to produce DOMS or other symptoms. Though, now one area where there's a lot of kind of debate is with long distance running and Ironman and everything like that, because with endurance activities, they're meant to be, or they're known to be aerobic. However, a lot of the times when people perform them, they're doing it anaerobically. So like performing a 4-minute mile, that is technically an anaerobic thing, because as much as you're doing an endurance event, you're pushing yourself to a point where it becomes more of a sprint than a jog. And so this is where there becomes confusion, because with longer distance events you may think that, oh, that still fits into like a normal idea of aerobic. However, it has to be like a jog. A jog is what more so identifies of an aerobic activity, where you don't really have to try hard. You can keep up a normal conversation while doing it, and that way it allows for you to have that kind of barrier where you are able to do things, however you're not fully pushing yourself. Because if you push yourself too much, that's where you have the anaerobic wall, and once you pass that wall, that's where the lactic acid will begin to develop. Now, the other thing that this says on the document is take it slow. I think that just means take it gradually. Don't jump in head first. If you want to get into basically any training thing, remember to take things slow. If there is a beginner's plan, follow that if you're just getting into something, because the one stupid thing that a lot of people do, especially with this quarantine going on, is when people went back to the gyms, they started to try to hit their lifts that they hit last time they were there. However, due to the amount of time being away from the gym, it creates the issue of, your muscles have, I can't think of the word. And all that time where you weren't at the gym, your muscles haven't experienced the same levels of hypertrophy and training that they once did. They have began to kind of go back to the way they originally were, losing that mind-muscle connection and the muscle, the retention of what they used to be able to do. So if you're getting into something new, just start with the basics. If you want to start running, just go for a simple jog, and as you do it more and more, you will begin to see an increase in how fast you can run. If you want to do sprints, start off with probably 50 meter and continue to develop from there. And if you want to do jumps, just start with bounds in simple plyometrics. That way you're not kind of jumping in head first. And then with weightlifting, it goes into a lot of different things because different people have different goals. Because if you're a power lifter, you want to lift more weight. However, to begin, you should see where you are. And then if you're looking at bodybuilding aspect, then you start with light weights and continue rep ranges. But that is what I've done. You can feel free to go online, look for any other opinions on those subjects. You can even take your own into consideration after looking at different ideals, because ultimately it is what you're doing. If you're not using a coach, if you are using a coach, they most likely are trained and do know what they're doing. However, if you're conducting a plan yourself, make sure you are educated on the stuff that is going on. Make sure you have a simple understanding on the multiple things going on within your body, and you understand your body and you'll listen to it. Because there's nothing worse than training so hard only to not listen to your body, and on the day that you need to perform is when everything goes wrong. But with that all being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to comment down below anything you want to see, anything you want to hear, anything you want to talk about. But with that all being said, feel free, hit the like button, as well as to subscribe if you're new around here. With that all being said, don't forget, don't party too hard, and I'll catch you guys again in the next video. Have a good one.